the City Council regular meeting on July the 28th, 2016, and it is 7:02. Please stand for the invocation and join me in the Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. The kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
I'd like to establish a quorum. We have Councilman Tejada, Councilman Ortiz, Councilman Nieto, Councilman Jimenez, and Councilwoman Cantu. We have more than a quorum, okay? Let's recite the U.S. Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Thank you. Seated. Let's start out by asking if we have any citizen comments. There are no citizen comments, and we'll go on to the old business. We have three items to approve under old business. CNA to approve meeting minutes for the regular meeting on April the 28th, 2016. Can we do these by consent, sir?
Yes.
Okay. The minutes for May 12, 2016, and the minutes for May 12, 2016, and that was for the new council. May I have a motion to approve these? Y'all need time to read them? That's okay. Mr. Hug, the council was not here for the first two, so some of the members were not here for the first two.
Right, we can then pull that third set of minutes out of the consent and have a separate CNA on that one.
Okay. Well, let me do each one separately,
Okay.
because it becomes easier. Okay, let me have a motion for April the 28th.
I so move, Madam Mayor.
May I have a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. May I have all those in favor? Okay. Did you get the vote?
Why did you see 1, 2, 3, Councilman Tejada?
3?
302.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I have a motion? Motion carries. May I have a motion for May the 12th? The first regular meeting on May the 12th.
On these citizens' comments, weren't we going to give a little bit more description on the comments being made?
Madam Secretary, would you like to answer that question?
Okay, on the ones for the second meeting, I don't believe there were.
Well, even for the first minutes that we just approved, there was no comments.
Oh, on the 28th, was the meeting that we had at the event center, and there was no recording. No, he's talking about the first one, on the 28th, right, Councilman?
Yes. Well,
That one, we
either
didn't have a
one.
recording. I mean, I took some notes, but there was a lot of, I don't
Static.
have, yeah. I mean,
What
I
about
can
the
go
one on
back-
the 12th?
I can go back and try and read and watch some of the videos from YouTube and catch some of the stuff if you'd like. But I think y'all already approved, that one was just approved.
No, the one on May the 12th, the first one.
No, he asked about the 28th.
Well,
Okay.
May 12th, April 28th, all of them, none of them have
The citizen,
any citizens' input.
okay. can go back and change that.
Okay, we've already approved the April the 28th, do we want to go back and, since that's the one we had a problem with with the audio? You want to, council, do y'all want to rescind April the
I made the
28th?
motion to make that one rescind.
Okay, so we will move forward. What would you like to do with the May the 12th and both of them for May the 12th, since they do not have citizens' comments?
I think the vote that the council took actually was at the May 12th meeting where we need to be a little bit more specific on,
That was at the April 28th meeting. of the-
I'm sorry, April 28th at the event center, correct.
So do you recommend that we table so that we can get citizen comments in those two for May the 12th?
I would make that recommendation.
Well, please make a motion.
So move.
May I have a second to table both of the meetings for May the 12th?
Second?
Okay. All those in favor? Is that for all opposed?
Just the last two, yes.
Yeah.
So it's three, so it's
You
five,
can vote
all the, y'all, okay. 5-0.
Right, thank you. They have been tabled. All right, that took too long. Let's move on to the second one. Item number 2, presentation and discussion. The first item are the Wildcats football, use of city park and charging fees. City manager?
Yes, ma'am. At one of our meetings previously, there was a question about charging fees at the football. I reached out to a representative of the Wildcats and asked about what fees were being charged and things such as that. And so a representative is here from the Wildcats to explain what those charges are, and I'll give the podium to him. Is that all right, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
She's gonna pass out a paper we filled out so y'all can go along with me. I'll give y'all a minute to look over that so that you can kind of keep up once we.
Henry, who was it that brought this up? I did.
Actually, Councilman Ortiz.
Yeah, we did, okay.
Bronson, before you begin your presentation,
Yes, sir.
I don't know if maybe the city manager has discussed with you the possibility of a new park being built. So we'll have to look at some type of, your fees are probably going to be in line with the new park. There has to be some type of cooperative effort between
Well,
the city and
the
the
biggest
government.
thing is if you go through it, you see what our cost is and the reasoning what we do. We don't actually charge for admittance into the park. We're at the front, but if they're going to soccer, or if they're going to swimming pool, stuff like that, we're not actually charging for that. We're charging to allow us to pay for refs and
Yeah.
do the different
No,
things
exactly.
it takes to operate and maintain our costs where we're at. We have kids that are on payment plans throughout the year just to pay their fees.
Yeah.
So without that, we can't. You add another $55 to our fee, which is already $250 for tackle. That goes over $300. You're gonna turn a bunch of these low-income kids away. And we don't turn anybody away. In fact, we just had a local businessman just pay for two of the kids that couldn't afford to play. So we reach out to several different people, and we try to keep it as cost efficient as possible. I don't see another way of us going about it. We've been doing it since I've been here 9 years, so they did it the 4 years before that, and we've continued to do the same thing.
I don't have a problem with that, Brandon, but a lot of people have approached me, and I know that they have approached other council members that once they go in there, they are charged.
if they're going to football or if they're going to.
In there, in the city park.
Yeah, we don't, I mean, you can come out and if you want to sit there, we've even had, over years, we actually used to use the deputy, the city, so.
And I don't want to make up any excuses, but when I went in there, they charged me.
I'm sure if you say you're going to football, then, you know, the board members at the front will charge you, so.
I support y'all's program on football, but I would like to see an agreement where y'all can say, you know what, once y'all go into the park, we will not charge, but whenever we go into that football game, then we will charge.
Right.
That way, the people already know that we approve that.
Right, well, I mean, I think that's what we're doing existing, but
I understand.
other than putting up a
I
fence or
understand.
something, I don't know what
I
our
don't
program.
dispute anything, but
Right,
that,
no, I understand
that
completely,
agreement that
and, you know, it's a public park, and
I
I know there's certain things you have to pay for when you're there, you know, like go to the pool and stuff like that, but we don't double charge them where they pay for us to come in the park, and then they're going to the pool, you know, and pay it again.
Do you think that we could set up
Any kind of agreement or whatever you want us to do, and I mean, you know, some games, just depending on who we're playing, we have to have security. It's just unfortunate that those organizations act like that, but we do it for,
Mayor and City Council, one of the things that we talked about when we were doing our park plan, and here's our final copy, was we have a general plan for all of them, not just football, but baseball and everyone, that the attorney has done, but we haven't set fees because we were waiting to see what the final cost is for the final plan. And so whatever, in the local agreement, we have that, but I think we left the fee and what it would cost and how would we do that open. Is that right, Chris?
And what that would do, like Councilman Ortiz was saying, I think, is it would give the football, the Wildcats, exclusive use of these fields for these times. And if that's the case, then they could charge admission to those fields because they would have a right to exclusive use per contract with the city. But as of right now, there isn't such a contract, and so charging for admission, even part of the park right now, gets into some, because we don't have an ordinance. Like with the pool, we have an ordinance that says you pay an admission cost for the pool.
I was just referring, we don't try to double charge people
Right.
that are going there. It's a matter of
As
cost.
Mr. Fuller expressed, I mean, I've coached the soccer, and when you go through, they ask, you know, you want to go to soccer, they don't charge you, and so you're not going to the football field. But a lot of these costs, like you said, are going to maintenance, so if you're building a new field, they're not gonna have to do these maintenance, they're not gonna have to tear down baseball fields and start their football field all over again, and they have designated fields, so there's probably not gonna be, you know, such a need, you know, for this inflow, if they've got fields that they don't have to, you know, reconstruct every year.
Yes, and actually, once we get the preliminary plans from Heartland, we want to share it with them, so we come up and share it with you, of course, as well, because we haven't had that feedback from them from the last time that we met with them. And so we're hoping to do that, and so we can talk about, you know, how we want to gate and have a little more security. And one of the things they were talking about was having a gate or entry area into this area. But I did not want to explain it, and thank you so much for coming, in case you had any questions about what was going on, and then we can also talk about having some agreements going forward.
I don't, you know, of course, I'm here representing our board, but we have 15 men and women that actually run our board, so if we could allot a time frame ahead of schedule and maybe have the opportunity where we have a better representation from our board to come in and make that agreement with the city, you know.
I think we're gonna build something that the parents and the players will be very proud of.
But we're thankful for, you know, all that y'all do already. I mean, it's still a blessing what we have, so.
Between now and the time the new park is built, is there something we need to do, an agreement?
Well, I think what I wanted to do is have you all to have an understanding of what it is, and maybe you can do like a temporary agreement, if you can give me the dates of when we need to actually reserve it for them so that we can maybe do that. So if
Can you work with Mr. Fuller and come up with a recommendation?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that okay, council?
Great.
Yes. And I'll bring it back to you, is that okay?
That's fine. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you. All right, we'll go on to the next item, Trail Ride Fundraiser by W. Wheat. Anyone here for the Trail Ride Fundraiser? Mrs. Turner, do you know anything about that one?
He requested to come before the city council to speak to you all about BYOB, but other than that, I don't have any other information.
All right,
Madam Mayor, we could just table it, he might show up later on during the meeting.
all right. We'll just skip that one for now. We'll go on to item C, renaming the Lauro G. De Leon III Floresville Event Center. Ms. Turner?
Yes, ma'am. I think Councilman Ortiz mentioned that the name for the center, and I provided copies for you, and again, it is in your packet, of the two procedures that happen in renaming the event center itself. And if you look underneath your package as I get there, the first one is the original one that was done back in, is that the right? First one was the original one? No, I'm sorry. The first one is the last one that we did, and then the first one was done in 2005. Okay, so in 2005, it did have in honor of specialist, but it actually, the name I believe was actually the Lauro de Leon Event Center. Is what the name became, even though it was in the motion, but the actual legal name in the resolution was to name it the City of Floresville De Leon Community Center. That was in 2005. And then in 2011, a CNA to approve the City of Floresville to name it the Lauro G. De Leon III Floresville Event Center is the legal name. And so staff was asking for direction on what did you wanted to do about the name of the center itself.
And that's only adding the title, right? Specialist?
I'm just presenting what was passed.
Okay.
Even when it was in the original motion, his name, specialist, his title was given, but that's not what the actual was passed in 2005.
Okay, so,
Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ortiz, but I think what Mr. Ortiz is referring to is the letters that are actually on the building.
Right.
And the legal name of it is the Lauro G. De Leon III Floresville Event Center. It didn't include the rank.
It
When-
didn't?
No,
Correct.
sir, it did not.
But on the building right now, it has the words community center or event center, something like that.
Event center is proper, as part of the full name.
But, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Ortiz, but I think you're talking about actually just taking those letters off and replacing with the name.
With the specialist law of
And I guess we can do that locally. We can't, there's some issues involved with changing the name by resolution like was done before because we have bonds out that reference it as the Lauro G. De Leon III Floresville Event Center. And so even adding specialist changes the legal name, and so we have to get with Jeff Kuhn on those. But as far as the actual honoring of him with the lettering and putting his rank on there, that could be done with changing and adding that there. But as far as the legal name of the event center, there's some issues involved with even adding the rank to the front.
Chris, so there's a first resolution on 2005. To me, I understand it's specialist.
In 2005, the resolution that was actually passed, if you look at it there, so the motion says that it was going to be done in honor of Specialist Lauro De Leon III. And then the actual resolution says, we're going to rename it in honor of Specialist Lauro De Leon III as the City of Floresville De Leon Community Center. So the actual legal name that the city gave it in 2005 was the City of Floresville De Leon Community Center. And then in 2011, it was changed to the Lauro G. De Leon III Floresville Event Center. So Specialist has never been a part of any of these. And I don't know if that was a mistake in the drafting of the resolution in 2005 or what happened there, but.
That's when his mom came over and, that's how I interpret that, specialist.
so the implications of change that would be costly?
We have to check with bond counsel. There'd probably be some redrafting of documents and it'd have to go out to bondholders and things, but. But changing the lettering on the event center could be done fairly easily, because it just wouldn't change the legal name, but it would change the display name.
Okay, maybe I'll have a conversation with Ms. Lopez.
Okay. Any other questions, Councilman Ortiz?
In the meantime, can we see what the pricing would be to change the letters and then we'd have to repaint that facade right there?
If you go to the next item here, I think that'll address that.
Okay.
All right, bids for the Lauro G. De Leon III Floresville Event Center sign.
Yes, and so this is the sign that we talked about before, that LED sign that would be up front. Here's a specification you have already approved for it to go out to bid. I have dates of August 3rd to come back September 8th. So I want to let you know that we're going out to bid for that sign. I did remove, based on some conversations, the sign here at City Hall, based on projecting that we may be doing some renovations here. So this only includes a sign at the event center, and at that time, they could take care of the sign portion on the facade itself.
Okay, how do you determine the specs on the sign?
The sign from based on what you all had for the demonstration, when we went out there for the demonstration, you saw it in place. So the gentleman recommended the pistols and things such as that to size, and that's what's in this bid.
It's gonna be a 10 by 20, right?
Yes, sir.
That's pretty big, big sign. I think it'll promote the events in the city.
And does any of this have to go before the 4A?
I didn't think about that.
It's their building. Put letters on their building. If someone's putting letters on my house, I'd want to be, I'd want to be notified.
I can,
But it's not their building.
I can give them a copy of the specifications and see, and
I'm just saying,
involve.
part of the whole interlocal agreement.
Yes.
I mean, I understand it's not the bid, the city owns it, but
Yes.
still, there's a certain lettering
A
and
courtesy?
and changing names.
A courtesy?
Or would you like for me to send it to them, see if they have any comments? They just had their board meeting some time ago. Would you like for me to send it to them and then I can change the dates?
And it would be advisory, like we saw with the name changes, it's not specifically anything that 4A has to do, but like you said, for cooperation and in the spirit of everything, at least let them know what's going on would probably be a good idea.
So I can let them know and send it to them, and then they'll have a meeting, but I just want to advise that it will probably be delayed for another 30 to 45 days, because they've already had their meeting for this month. They're not meeting until next month.
I mean, it could still go up for bid, because we do have a right to reject all proposals, and if the 4A says adamantly, no, we don't want to sign, we could, cancel the project without delaying it. But like I say, it's more of an advisory thing. If we're going to put up a sign, is there anything specifically, that you have an issue with? And if that's the case, we can do a bid amendment or things like that. So that's up to the council's decision on how you want to go.
Let's proceed and then we'll give them ample time to.
Yes, well, I know
This
it's,
isn't a CNA.
this is CNA. I'm just informing you, and
Right now, we're on track. If we want to not put this out for bid, then the city manager could make that determination.
so I will proceed as written. If you have any comments, just let me know.
All right, thank you, Ms. Turner. We'll go on to the next item, Freedom Fest update. Better?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councilman, Councilwoman. As everybody knows, July 3rd, we had our Family Fun and Freedom Festival. I'm happy to say that it was a profitable event. We served about 1,768 people, not all from the area, a majority from the area. Probably about 80 hotel rooms were taken from people that came from San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Beeville, McAllen, Edinburgh. So we had some people come in from out of town. Our total cost in the event was $31,290.84, and we brought in $39,849. It was the first time we've done a city 4th of July celebration in 5 years. Every event, whether you've done it for 20 years or 5 years or 1 year, you could always get better. The 4A met last week and we had open discussion with that and a lot of positives. We took a lot of notes at the event and took in a lot of constructive criticism and great praise so we can move forward for next year. We already put it down on the calendar for next year. It's something that we can build on this. You can't stop and go. We have to just continue to grow. And so I think it was a great community event with representatives from all over, every ethnicity and different towns. So I think it was very successful.
Council, any questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
You said you had 1,700 people, about 1,700.
Down here.
Yes, sir.
Right there.
And how much
We collected $39,849.
For the gate fee?
For the gate fee, pre-sale was $2,715, and at the gate, $5,739. The rest of I did not count, because you cannot count in revenue, was all the vendors, their workers, as well as kids that came to the event.
What were the in-kind donations?
In-kind donations, articles in newspapers in San Antonio, radio promotion, 100 cases of water from Walmart, pop-up tents from Walmart, those kind of things. And those things are great because we don't have to pay for them next year. We have those tents. I mean, you know, it's not a lot of money, but it is money. $75 each is helpful.
Do you have a breakdown of what all the sponsors?
Yes, sir.
sponsored did?
I could provide that to you.
Tony, on the beer cost,
Yes, sir.
$1,600, $1,673, is that kind of low?
Yeah, well, so what happens is you order the beer, we ordered the beer, we had some left over, but we also sell beer every weekend at the event center. So I worked with the comptroller's office and we transferred the inventory to our event center inventory, because it just provides us to not have to order beer for about a month and a half. And so it just switched right over.
Did people bring their own or what?
No, it was absolutely not. Nobody brought their own. It was, we tried to make it to where we were gonna be profitable by selling water, sodas, and beer. We've already started working on next year. Budweiser says, Silver Eagle says they are gonna be involved. They're not sure about how much.
There was a lot of questions
Absolutely.
why there was no other type of beers and stuff. And you did say it was a Miller Lite event, it wasn't a city event or FEDC event?
No.
Stand me if I'm correct?
Okay, it was an FEDC was the title sponsor.
No, you said that it was a Miller Lite event.
Right, it is, like I had mentioned earlier to you, in regards to alcohol, it was a Miller Lite event. They were the ones
No,
that,
you're telling everybody that this was a Miller Lite event, that it was
Yes.
not, that it was not an FEDC event or the city of Floresville event.
no, sir.
You even said that in front of our city manager.
No, I told
That's
that,
why,
yeah. It was a Miller Lite event. It was a Miller Lite event in regards to alcohol. Just like on every poster, advertising, everything that was out in the community, over 650 posters.
but yet you're selling, the behind of the ticket, it had Budweiser.
There's some legalities that we have to go through in order to make TABC happy. And there are also things that I wanted to try to save money. And to order the coupons for an event like this costs between $1,000 and $2,000 in coupons. Peanut Festival right here, they can tell you it costs them a lot of money to print the coupons.
Yeah,
And so I got them donated. I figured at this time, the first event, to save the $1,000 to $1,500 was the most important thing for the first event.
Yeah, but I think it's totally unfair that you're selling a ticket that has Budweiser on there, but you refuse to sell Budweiser on it, you know, so.
Point
It's
taken.
a lot of, and I brought it to your attention.
Yes, sir, you brought it to my
City
attention.
manager's attention.
And we talked about it several times. But we have Budweiser next year. I'm happy to tell you that it was a very successful event, and it's going to be bigger and better.
Thank you. Any other questions? Council?
I just want to say, Madam Mayor, that it was a good event, and as a matter of fact, I beat my colleagues over here, so
Watermelon eating contest.
it was a good event.
Yes, it was. Very good. Thank you so much,
Very
Mr.
good,
Rivera.
Thank you, Tony.
We'll move on to the next item, FEDC and City of Floresville Development Agreement for Recreational and Park Facilities.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, this is the prerequisite document that goes before the FEDC can move to take out the bond, the $1.43 million bond that's been discussed. Their bond counsel needs to see some sort of a formal agreement for the use of those funds before they can go to the Attorney General or before they can proceed there. So this was drafted up and sent over for our review. The FEDC had looked into and voted on a resolution for what to include, and their attorney had drafted the document. This was done at the same night that Heartland came by to present. So their board had voted to include bidding as a prerequisite. And most of the changes you can see on here in red line are, we didn't need to include as an Exhibit A plans, things of that nature. If there's any of the legal questions, I'm happy to answer them. But the big part that we probably want to talk about is on page 5, where it starts Article 6, Covenants and Duties. And so,
What does it start with?
page 5, Covenants and Duties, is in the bold, kind of in the middle. And so this part on here, A is the total amount that will be paid over to the city out of the bond. That we still don't know yet because it'll incorporate their legal fees and things like that. But that'll be filled in. Then the highlighted part, the city shall contribute funds and in-kind contributions in the collective amount. That's blank because we had talked about a tax note at last night's workshop. We'll be talking today. The actual amount that the city's going to contribute will maybe be affected by that, maybe not. That's up for the council to decide. And then the Article 4, or Section 4 of that article, says city shall fund maintenance of Phase 1 in accordance with, and I struck the part about M&S and say the recommendation of the selected construction contractor. That way, if the city does agree to enter into a formal contract with Heartland, we would build it in accordance with what they say. And then Section 6 is the one where it talks about the bidding. And so they had on there, the city shall collect multiple sealed construction proposals for the project. That's where they had ended it. I added in, unless authorized to proceed without the necessity of a bidding process by a provision of the Texas Government Code, Texas Local Government Code, or other controlling state or federal law. That invokes the State Cooperative Act that we talked about with Heartland, where they had bid to the state, and the state had awarded them a contract. So there was a competitive bid. It was just done to the state of Texas. And so if we hire them, we're excused from going through our own competitive bid process. And so those are the big changes. This is a presentation and not up because it still has to go back to the FEDC, and their board will have to vote to amend what they've done in the past if they choose to go along with this. So at some point, we'd like to put together another one of those joint meetings, and so everybody can talk about the terms of the contract. I have gone back with their legal counsel, and their legal counsel is satisfied as to the legal sufficiency of this, but the policy is what their board still has to vote
Well, can we set that up for their next meeting, or?
on. I believe so, we can.
It's on the 8th of August, which is a Monday, because they meet on Mondays, August 8th.
So we could do a special meeting on that date.
Actually, they meet on the first Monday. It's the first, August 1st.
It's the second Monday.
It's the second Monday,
Monday, then
so
it's
we
the
will
8th.
see.
And what time is that meeting again? They're
Oh,
meeting
you're
at
gonna-
6:30, I believe, is
6:30.
their meeting.
So we'll just need 2 council members to sponsor the special meeting, like usual. So after the meeting, we can get 2 council members to sign off on it.
Okay, all right.
That was already done after the workshop.
Any other questions? All right,
You
thank
feel
you so
comfortable,
much.
Chris, with this resolution?
Yeah, with this interlocal, yes, I do. With the changes, if they're approved by the FEDC, they accomplish what has been discussed at the workshops and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, that completes the presentations, unless someone came in from Trail Ride fundraiser. Mr. Wheat? No one? All right. Maybe next time. We'll go on to new business. First item is CNA to approve the sauce bed and banks resolution 2016-008. Councilman Tejada?
Madam Mayor, we have a representative from San Antonio Water Systems here with us, and if we can give us some time to make the presentation regarding the resolution.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Billy Cachet, and I am the Governmental Relations Manager with San Antonio Water System. And we're here to talk about a resolution that we are requesting that you consider. and that is regarding our bed and banks application, or bed and banks authorization application before the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. Now, what this has to do with is that this is part of our recycled water system. We have the largest, or one of the largest recycled water systems in the world. And with that recycled water, we put it to many beneficial uses. But before we get to that, let me just take about 60 seconds to tell you that, of course, I represent San Antonio Water System, the water and wastewater provider for the majority of Bexar County. And as part of our system, we have a wonderful conservation program, a very large recycled water system. We have several water projects that are innovative, such as desalinated brackish groundwater. We store a huge volume of water in South Bexar County that is used just like a reservoir, except that it's underground so it doesn't evaporate. We're very innovative in how we use water. As you all well know, that here in South Texas, the one thing that we can count on is drought. So we're always trying to mitigate drought and to keep our water rates as low as possible for our ratepayers, of which I am one, so I'm happy to say that. But back to this bed and banks, what it simply is that we're asking the state of Texas to allow us to retain ownership of a large volume of recycled water that we directly outflow into the San Antonio River. That amount of water, which is the equivalent of several thousand acre feet of water, simply means that it is keeping the San Antonio River flowing. That's what it does. And we inject directly probably about 80,000 acre feet, a lot of which goes to use as for the, I'm sorry, I'm messing up right here. One of our largest customers for recycled water is CPS Energy. They use this water for their cooling operations. So instead of using potable water that we take from the Edwards Aquifer, we're using the recycled water. And it saves that potable water for other uses. Other customers include Microsoft, Toyota Manufacturing. All of our municipal golf courses are watered with recycled water, not drinking water. And so what we want to do is that when this water goes into the San Antonio River, it meets up with the Guadalupe River and then goes directly to the coast in San Antonio Bay. We're asking the state to retain ownership of 50,000 acre feet every year to allow us to keep that ownership and make sure that it goes into San Antonio Bay. Now, the benefits to Floresville are very palpable. You can see it. San Antonio River goes right through your yard. Without that recycled water, there's not much of a river. And then, of course, if there's not much of a river, not much of it is going to get into San Antonio Bay. That has direct implications because of the endangered whooping cranes that live in the Aransas Wildlife Refuge. And without that water going into the bay, it increases the salinity levels, and it means that that endangered species becomes even more threatened. What we're trying to do with this water is to simply be part of a solution and not continue a problem. We want to make sure that San Antonio Bay stays healthy. If it does, no one will come to us and say, hey, San Antonio, what are you doing? What we can always say is that we are directly contributing to the solution by ensuring that that water gets into the bay to keep the endangered species healthy. Now, going back really quickly to the benefits of Floresville, the San Antonio River there's not much of a San Antonio River without our recycled water. The springs that feed the San Antonio River directly generally only output when there's a lot of rain. But as we talked about earlier on, we can always count on drought. So as long as that recycled water keeps flowing out of our Dos Rios facilities, you can count on San Antonio River being a resource for Floresville and for Wilson County. I know that right now there are paddling tours that go down to Sismamco. I understand that Sarah wants to continue to improve recreational uses in the city of Floresville on the San Antonio River, and all of this is made possible with recycled water. I'd like to emphasize that the cost to Floresville is not 1 cent. Y'all don't pay anything for this. No one in Wilson County pays anything for it. All of this is borne by the San Antonio Water System ratepayer. So what we're hoping for is some assistance, a resolution of support stating that we retain ownership of it. I'd like to introduce Greg Eckhart, who is our technical specialist on this. You want to talk about it?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening, council members. My name is Greg Eckhart, and I am from the operations branch of SAWS. That's the section of SAWS where we actually run the systems that Billy was talking about, the water system, the wastewater system, the recycled water system, the aquifer storage and recovery project, and now the desalination plant that we're building right now. But I cut my teeth, my primary specialty is wastewater. So I do that for SAWS. I also am serving a state on the expert science team for environmental flows in the San Antonio Guadalupe Basin. And I'm not doing that as a SAWS person, that is just as a science guy. And so I'd like to give you just quickly just a little background on how we got here to where we are tonight. Back in 2007, the state of Texas passed Senate Bill 3, and part of that established what's called the environmental flows process. The state decided that it wanted to quantify or find out how much water does the river need for environmental purposes, for health in the river and also in the bay and estuary system when the water gets to the coast. That was the question on the table. So the state appointed a group of scientists like me to look at that question, and they also appointed a group of stakeholders from all over the basin, from the coast up into the hill country. They represented industry and agriculture and the environment and municipalities, and everybody was at the table on the stakeholder end of it. So the science geeks like me, we worked for 2 years to come up with the answer to that question about how much water the river needs. And we made recommendations, and then the stakeholders' job, what their job was to do, was to balance the environmental recommendations that we made with human needs. Our job was just to make science-based recommendations about environmental needs, and their job was to do a balancing act, human and environmental. And then they made some changes to our recommendations, and they submitted that to the state of Texas. And then the state passed what's called environmental flow standards for the San Antonio and Guadalupe rivers. So at a number of locations, at 16 locations down both rivers, we know what the flow should be in order to keep the river and the bay and estuary system healthy. But what the legislation did not do was lay out a framework for making those flow numbers happen. They decided that it would all be voluntary. Nobody's going to be forced to try to make these environmental flow numbers happen. So the state asked the stakeholders to keep working and to come up with what they called a work plan. This was a document that laid out a list of voluntary things that people could do to try to attain these in-stream flow standards. And everybody recognized that without San Antonio's effluent, there just really isn't any water in the river during the dry times. So really the cornerstone of the work plan that the stakeholders came up with, the key item was voluntary dedications of wastewater effluent for in-stream flows. And that's what this is. This is 50,000 acre feet a year. I'll try to put that in some perspective. If you can imagine a place where the river is 20 feet wide and about 3.5 feet deep, and it's flowing at a rate of 1 foot per second, that would come up to 50,000 acre feet a year. So it's a significant volume of water. And what we're really talking about here is providing this flow, this minimum amount of water that the river needs during the dry times. Because when it rains, there's plenty of water in the river. So it's really about making sure that there's water in the river during the extremely dry times. This water, eventually gets to San Antonio Bay. And down there, it has all these benefits. Everybody down there recognizes the benefits that the water has when it gets there. As far as the commercial fisheries, all the recreation that happens there. And so this is really not just about the environment. This is about protecting the environment, yes, but it's also about everything that happens in the river along the way, as far as commercial fisheries and recreation and all that other stuff that happens. And this is also about, so you're probably going to ask the question, well, what does San Antonio get out of this? So we look like we're just giving a bunch of water away. What we get out of this is we are asking the state that we will also retain ownership of any future flows that develop. This 50,000 acre feet, the number that Billy was struggling for The amount that we typically produce from our plants in a dry year is about 125,000 acre feet. 1 acre foot will supply about 2 families of 4 people, so that's enough for 250,000 families of 4. So that's a lot of water. That's how much our wastewater plants produce. Of that 125,000, we have a contract with CPS Energy to supply them 50,000 acre feet. And we also have this large recycled water program that we have, our goal is to market 25,000 acre feet of water. So this 50,000 acre feet is everything we have left today after we supply those other needs, CPS Energy and our recycled purple pipe system. 50,000 acre feet is what we have left over. That's the dedication that we want to make, is this 50,000 acre feet will be dedicated to in-stream flows perpetually, and we will also retain ownership of any future effluent that develops in the future. This will be decades from now before we see an increase in flows, I think. San Antonio, like Billy mentioned, has an aggressive conservation program, and believe it or not, San Antonio has grown by 40% in the last 30 years, and we're still producing the same amount from the plants as we were 30 years ago. The supply of water has not grown, and that's what makes this a hugely valuable resource, this 50,000 acre feet. To kind of put it in perspective, you might have heard we're doing the Vista Ridge water project, which just by coincidence is also 50,000 acre feet. That is a $3.2 billion project. So 50,000 acre feet is a lot of water, there's a lot of competition for it, and what we want to do is make sure that this water gets to San Antonio Bay. Right now, the way it works right now is when we put groundwater into the San Antonio River, it becomes the property of the state. But there's a mechanism in the law, that's where this gets its name, the bed and banks thing. It's called a bed and banks application because there's a section in the law that allows you as a private owner of the groundwater to maintain ownership. What you're allowed to do is use the bed and banks of the state's river to move your water down to some other location for reuse. So when you get an authorization, it's no longer state water. You retain ownership of it.
You can do that now, can't you?
Sir?
So you can do that now.
That's what this application, we don't have a bed and banks authorization currently to retain
I know,
ownership.
but right now, if you want to irrigate out of the San Antonio River, you're allowed to, correct?
Not us, because we don't.
As an individual,
Yes.
you own the property, you can't.
Exactly, and I should mention, every landowner on the San Antonio River has riparian rights to some amount of water. This has no effect on anybody's riparian water rights. It will not be impacted at all by this. But, anyway, that's where the application gets its name, is you're allowed to use the bed and banks of the river to move your water downstream for reuse. What's unusual about this application that we have before the state is nobody has really ever used this provision of the law to do something like this before. In most cases, what a city is trying to accomplish is they are trying to divert the water and water some golf course or use it downstream somehow. But we want the water to just stay in the river. And so the state kind of doesn't know what to do with this. And so it's been sitting on their desk now for a little over 2.5 years. It took them until, we filed this application in December of 2013, and they just declared it administratively complete about a month ago. So that was a 2.5 year span where it was on the same person's desk. So we started doing public outreach because first of all we wanted to know everybody to know what we were doing, and we also wanted to enlist support from people to impress upon the state that we had a lot of regional support for this. So we started at the coast and we're working our way inland, and so far we have 16 resolutions of support from various cities and chambers of commerce, and I think they're all in various counties, and who else do we have? We have a bunch of them.
Two of the biggest stakeholders that we have in this are the San Antonio River Authority and Wilson County. We do have resolutions of support from them. So we are up to 16 official resolutions and counting, and we've been doing this outreach program for a little bit more than a year. And there is still more to be approached, but you know, it's something that we're doing as time goes on. It's not an aggressive everyday campaign.
So, I think one reason that we've had so much success, especially down there along the coast, is they recognize the benefit that this water has to them. And so, if you like, there's something in this for everybody. If you like the environment, you like this. If you like the fisheries and recreation along the coast and the river, you like this. If you like private property rights and maintaining ownership of your property, you like this. So we really haven't run into anybody who's been opposed to this except the Guadalupe Blanco River Authority, who they have a project along the coast where their proposal is to pick this water up and use it and sell it, and then it would never make it to the bay. So we just think that it's the right thing to do. If some of you were around back in the 1990s when we went through all the endangered species arguments and lawsuits, San Antonio was dragged into that kicking and screaming. Our pumping from the Edwards was limited, and there were loud complaints by the mayor and council there at the time. But we learned from that. And like Billy mentioned, there was a lawsuit recently about the endangered whooping crane. And the birds lost that round, but I think they'll be back. And there are also a number of mussel species in the San Antonio River that are listed as threatened right now, could be listed as endangered. And so someday, it could come to where a federal judge might tell San Antonio, you must put water in the river for the sake of these endangered species. Well, this is our attempt to sort of stand up, do the right thing 20 years before it comes to that, and say, look, we're doing our part. We're putting 50,000 acre feet in the water, and that's what the scientists have recommended is enough to maintain the environmental health.
What's the difference right now by the state owning it and y'all owning it? That water is wastewater. I mean, if you don't put it in the San Antonio River, where else are you gonna put it? I mean, you gotta get rid of it.
If we didn't put it in the San Antonio River, there's a number of options for it.